Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for coming along this afternoon. We're looking at CH50 accounts, and we're specifically looking today at importing records. Can be a really good time saver, this one. So if you've never touched it before, good opportunity to maybe going forward, spot those opportunities to where you might think, well, actually, rather than key that in, maybe I could use import. If you can, potentially, as I say, good time saver. So we're looking at about 45 minutes this afternoon, plenty of demonstrations. Might seem a little bit repetitive when we go through the demonstrations, but hopefully there'll be a little change to each one. Right, now just before we get started, a little bit of housekeeping, just in case anyone is new to webinars. A few names on the list I don't recognise. So as normal, your microphone would be muted. You can't unmute yourself during the session, so you don't actually need a microphone for these sessions. And that just means if you've got any questions for me, although you can't verbally ask them, you can type them into the questions panel. To access that and submit your questions, you need to click the little speech bubble icon. Give it a click. It'll expand the panel. You get access to that box in the bottom corner. You can show or hide that throughout the session today. So pop your questions, your comments in there. Remember to click send, otherwise I won't see them. If anyone does want a copy of today's slides, they are available to download via the handout option. However, the detailed information, as normal, you will find that in the Help Centre. Talking a little bit about that a little bit later on. Now, this session is being recorded, so if you do want a bit of a recap, the link to the recording will be included on your follow-up email. You'll receive that around about an hour after we finish. It will also include a link so you can get registered for our upcoming webinars, and also so you can access our other recordings as well. So we've got probably a library of well over 100 different topics now. So if there's something you're not sure about, or maybe there's an area of the software that you're looking to start using, then do check that out. So again, links are all included on that follow-up email. Right, this is the agenda for today's session. So we're going to start with a brief introduction to importing, just in general. We'll then look at preparing your data, talk a little bit about that as well. We'll run through quite a few demonstrations in today's session. I'm going to be using customers as an example. I think customers, as far as records is concerned anyway, customers and probably product records are the two most commonly used ones, but you can import into a number of different areas. But the process is pretty much the same. So we'll run through a series of demonstrations. We'll pick up on troubleshooting as well. So you tend to find with import that when you run through it, chances are it might not work first time. So we're going to cover the obvious things that catch people out. And if you do get an error when you're trying to import, how you go about troubleshooting that. And then right at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support. And if there's any outstanding questions at that point, I'll try and pick them up at that point as well. Obviously, we can run through a few extra demos here and there if anyone has any requests. Now, we're looking at importing records today. Later on in the week, I think it's Friday. Let me see if I can quickly check that. Yeah, on Friday morning, Friday afternoon, 2 o'clock Friday afternoon, we're looking at importing transactions. So that would complement this session as well. Right, so let's get started. So first of all, why would you want to import in the first place? What's the reasoning behind that? So if you've got a large amount of data to enter, and generally when I speak to customers, that data would come maybe from other software, maybe come from your other colleagues. It might be the likes of your accountants who gives you a list of year-end adjustments that you need to post to your accounts, but it comes from somewhere. So if you've got that large amount of data to enter, or you maybe want to make changes to multiple records, rather than sit there keying in those changes one by one or adding in the records one at a time, then potentially you can use import. So hopefully it would save you time. So it brings all of your data into your software in one go, rather than, as it suggests there, sitting there keying it in. And obviously it avoids things like mistakes as well. We'll come on to those benefits in just a moment. Now, use-wise, there's two main uses for importing. One is to add new data, so adding new records into your accounts or new transactions. The second use, which is often overlooked, is to update existing data. So if there are changes to records that you want to make, such as maybe you want to review all of your credit limits against your customers at year end, for instance, rather than sit there going through your records one at a time, you might do that in the likes of Excel and then import that information. See if you're having to go through the records one at a time. Now, you can't do that with transactions. You can only update existing data when it's records. So benefits, hopefully you'll see this in the session today. It saves you time. It's flexible as well. So although there is probably a little bit of preparation involved, there's normally very little of that. So you don't have to necessarily prepare your import data so it's in the right order. It's quite flexible in that, well, you'll see it in today's session. You've got the data import wizard, so you can say, right, this information is included in that column of my spreadsheet. So it's just a case of mapping the information. We'll see that in the demonstration today. And obviously it avoids mistakes. If you're provided with a list of information, you're transferring it from one system to another, then if you use import, whatever's in the import file, that's what it imports. If you're sitting keying it in, you may be prone to the odd typo. And obviously there is the length of time that would take. Now, I have included a link to our Help Center article on how you go about importing data. So if you do want that, if you've downloaded the handout, then you can click that link and it will take you to the relevant article, that's where you'll find the detailed steps. Obviously, that information is really easy to find anyway within our Help Center. Right. Now, what can you import? Now, as we work through the data import wizard today, which you can see a screenshot of on the right-hand side of the slide there, you'll see that it's just a great big list of options to import, so these data types. So in amongst it, it's basically broken down into two areas. There's records, so importing customers, suppliers, nominal accounts, products, projects, and fixed assets. Now, the options that you have available to you there will very much be dependent on the level of the software you're using. So for instance, if you're on the professional level, which is what I've taken this screenshot for, you'll have that full list. Whereas if you're on essentials or standard, as far as records are concerned, you don't have access to the projects module. So therefore that option isn't available. The fixed assets, again, you don't have access to that ledger. So again, you wouldn't have that option available to you. You can also import transactions. So these days there are two audit trail transaction options. You can import project-only transactions. You can import transactions as part of a stock take. So saying, right, we've got this many in stock of a certain item. And you can also import stock transactions themselves, which is most likely to be used when you're maybe first start using the software and you're trying to establish stock levels. Now, transactions, as I mentioned, we are covering that on Friday afternoon. We'll be repeating that later in the month as well if you are wanting to come along to that session. So as I say, the options that you will have listed will be dependent on the level of your software. So today, what I'm going to concentrate on in the demonstrations is customers. Everybody has that. So it's available in all levels of the software. Now, preparing your data. Many years ago, I say many years ago, when I'm going to say when I was a young lad and I worked on the support line, it was quite cumbersome to prepare your data to sort of get it in the right sort of format for importing into Sage. So you had to have on a spreadsheet, you had to have the right information and you had to have it in the right order as well before you could do that. And often because of that, it used to seem quite time consuming at times. These days, you've got this data import wizard, which will guide you through that. And included in that are the Sage import templates. So let me just quickly show you that, just in case you're thinking about importing. You can use your own file. I'll be using a combination of templates and my own file during the session today. But if I quickly share my screen, so you'll see my desktop. And to access the templates, all I need to do is go to File and then down to Import. Now, if you don't have access to import, then it's going to be because of your access levels. So if you need access to it, then whoever logs in as manager would need to change that and give you access to that option. So File, Import, it brings up the data import wizard. And on step 1, which is the welcome step, second paragraph, you've got that little link. And if I click that, it opens up the folder that contains all of the import templates. So let's pick up on the customer record template. Now, if I just open that, just so you can see that and see what it looks like in Excel. So this is a template. And basically, if you're using a spreadsheet, so the likes of an Excel workbook, for instance, each sort of row would be for each record that you want to import. So if I was typing, let's say, A1 as my first customer account code, I'll put something in that column, and then I would fill in any other information on row 1 that relates to that customer. Now you'll see the headings along the top. They're color coded, and the idea of that is to help you with the import. The sort of aqua blue color, if you just hover over that one, you'll see it brings up what you term a comment box. And it tells me on that comment box that it's a required field. So you must put something in that field. So for every customer that you want to import, it must have something in the account reference. Now, depending what you do import, if you were to import transactions, you'll see there's a lot more of these similar colored column headings in the template. But for customer records, and generally records in general, they'll just be the one, which is the account reference. It's a thing that it's the commonality when you're cross-referencing records and you're posting transactions. It uses that account reference. Everything else in this case is in yellow, which means it's optional. So the minimum thing I need to pop in here if I wanted to import using a template is the account reference. Everything else is optional. Obviously, you're going to put things in like the account name, probably the address, contact name, but everything else is optional. So it'd just be a case of popping those in, and then obviously if you've got a second record, putting it on the next row, then the next row, etc. Now, chances are, if that information is coming from elsewhere, then it would be in a slightly different format. And I'll be using some files that I've created myself during the session today. But that's how you go about accessing those import templates if you need them. So let me just confirm that again for you, just in case anyone is interested. So it was onto the file menu, import, brings up the data import wizard. Now, one thing I must mention there as well is that to access that, you would need all of your other colleagues to be logged out. It's what you would term, or the import area is what you would term a program exclusive request. So it means that everyone else needs to be logged out for you to access that. If you try it when other people are logged in, it'll just say you can't do this while such and such is logged in. I'm sure you're familiar with those types of messages. So as I say, file, import, and then you're clicking this little link and it should bring up this folder for you that contains the Sage templates. If you want to use your own files though, not a problem, you can do that. And as I say, we'll be including some of that in the demonstrations in just a few minutes. So that's how you go about accessing those templates should you want them. One thing I must mention about the import templates as well is that they are flagged as read-only. So what you'll find is that if you open one and you start adding information, it won't just let you save that. You would need to do a save as. Other than that, fine. Right, let's crack on. To access the data import wizard, as you've just seen, it's File and then Import. And the warning at the bottom of step 1 on the welcome page is the data import procedure is not reversible. So you can't undo an import. The only way you can undo that, and similar to other tasks as well, such as if you reconcile your VAT return in error, the only way you can undo that is by restoring a backup. So in step 1, it includes a backup option. So it'll take a copy of your data at that point in time, meaning that if you make a right mess of your import, or maybe you import the wrong file, so you bring in loads of records that you shouldn't, or something along those lines, it means that if you've taken a backup just at this stage, then you can restore back to this point in time. Bit easier than maybe going through and saying, well, I need to delete that record, that one, that one, that one, that one, depending how many you've imported in error. So don't be that person that contacts our support team and says, right, I've imported, but I've selected the wrong file and I don't have a backup. If you don't have a backup, you're going to need to do it manually. So please bear that one in mind. Now, I'm not going to take backups in this demo today. It's just some dummy data I've got, but make sure when you're doing it, take that backup. I'm going to skip past that step when I'm in the demos today, just for speed. Right, so what we'll do is we're going to go through a series of demonstrations. So File, Import, it'll bring up that data import wizard. There's a number of steps in there which we'll run through, and I'll explain the various options that you've got available on each one. And I'll also show you how you can update existing customer records as well, and that goes for any other records in your software. So whether it's your products, maybe you want to update sales prices, that type of thing, or for whatever reason, maybe the VAT rate changes, or maybe the tax code, the VAT code itself, the T code that applies to a particular item, maybe that changes. Rather than going in manually, potentially you could use import to update those records. Right, back to my screen then, and we'll run through some demos. So at this stage, I've got a shell of a company here. I've got no transactions entered. It's completely blank. I've got no customers. I've got no suppliers. I do have nominal codes. Obviously, it creates that automatically. And I've got some bank accounts. Well, everything has a zero balance. But the main aim where we're working today, we've got no customers. So if you think about if you were given a list of customers, maybe you're just starting, or maybe you've had customers log their details online and you're wanting to import that information into your accounts. How would you go about doing that? Rather than sitting keying it in, so keying in names and addresses, if you type at the same speed as me, it's notoriously time consuming, that one. So anything you can do to speed it up, surely that's got to be a win. So we've got nothing entered at the moment. Now, if I just minimize Sage for a moment, and I've got this folder, and I've got some files in here that I've prepared. So we just open the first one, and this is what my file looks like. So it's just a basic file. I've got some headings at the top, and I've got some information here as well. So I've got some account references. Now you'll notice they're not color coded. I'm not using the Sage template. I'm going to come back to the template a little bit later on in some of the demos. And it's got some information in there. So it's not all of the information that I could potentially import, it's just some of it. But they all have an account reference. Right, let's just close out of that. It's one of the important things as well, is when you come to import, you must make sure you've got your import file closed. If you've got it open in Excel, essentially it'll be locked and the import won't be able to use it. You'll get an error when you're trying to import. Right, so we'll just close out of that. We'll close out of this for the time being as well, and we'll go back to Sage. So no customers at the moment. So I'm going to import that file. So File, Import. Tells me I've got some other windows open, so I've got the customer list open in the background, although it is blank. So I'll just click yes to the prompts. Closes it, and we're ready to import. So we're in the data import wizard. So you can see we've got 5 steps here. So the first one is that welcome step. Remember, that's your link there to the import templates. And remember, you've got the backup option. Again, do not be that person that rings our support team and says, oh, well, I don't take backup. So last one I took was from 2 weeks ago. I don't want to go back to that. Take your backup at that stage, cover your back. Obviously, if you click it, just launches the normal sort of backup wizard. You would make sure you include your data files, give it a file name, choose your location, and then when you're happy, you'll click OK. It'll prompt you, would you like to check your data beforehand? So you'll click yes, let it run through. Tells me there's no problems. I'll just OK that. If there were any errors, warnings, or comments, whenever you take that backup and check your data, just a case of you clicking down the relevant options down the side, and that will give you more information about what the query is. So no problems, tells me my backup has been successful. Obviously, it's nearly instant because it's a shell of a company basically. I just OK that, and that's it done. So that's step one. If we click next, it takes us on to step two. What is it you want to import? So as I mentioned, I'm going to be importing customers today. So customer records. So we'll select that. Click next. We're on to step three, choosing our data source. So first of all, what type of file is it that you're importing? Now, in this case, it's an Excel file. CSV, comma separated value. It's more of a, I suppose, more of a historic format where you would be transferring data from one software to another. But most people these days probably work in Excel. I would guess about 90% plus of our customers use Excel, or certainly have access to it. So it'll probably be in Excel, a little bit easier to work in than a CSV file. So it's an Excel file. I'm going to browse for that. So on my desktop, it was the import records folder, and this is the file we originally looked at. Now it says it's my own file and it does contain headings. It's just to remind me that one more than anything. So I'm going to select the file, click open, puts the path in for me, and I need to say, does it contain headings or not? Now mine does, so I'll make sure that's ticked. We then click next, and that takes us on to step 4. Now step 4 is the field mappings option. And this felt we'd taken massive strides back in the day when this was first introduced with regard to the import. So this is the option that means that you don't have to necessarily have your data in the right order. So the likes of your, it being the account reference, then the account name, then the address 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They don't necessarily have to be in that order. They could be in any order. So what we've got here is we've got the Sage field. So it's in the account reference. In the import file, the imported field, which is the column or which is the heading of the column that contains the account reference. Now you'll see it's got a little asterisk here in the required column. So that's a required field. I need to put something in here. So from the drop down, because it contains headings, it reads that for me. And it's just a case of me selecting the one I'm after. So the ACREF column in my import file contains the account reference. That's what I want to use as the account reference for my customers. The account name, I just select it. So just in my case, in my file, it's just called name. Now, if you know what the fields are actually called in your import file, so you know what the headings are, you can just type them in. So if I know Street 1 in Sage, that information is in my add 1 column. If I just press A, it'll start cycling through anything that begins with an A in my import file. So Street 2, in this case, I know it's add 2. Then it'll be add 3, add 4, and in my case, add 5. Now, is there anything else at this stage? I've got a contact and I've got a telephone number as well. I might as well import those. Let's type T for that one. It should jump down for me. There we go. Now you'll see there's loads of other fields that I could import into. I don't have to. I could import a fax number, information into the analysis fields, a department, VAT registration number, month to date, year to date turnovers, last year, credit limits, terms, due days. There's loads of fields that potentially I could import information for. But again, the only required field with regard to customers is this one at the top, and it's the account reference. Now, once I've done that, once I've mapped everything, I just click next. So it says you are now ready to import your data. So it gives me a little bit more information just based on some of the settings I've entered. And I'm just going to click import. Now, if you're importing loads of records, there's no limit to how many you can import at any one time, maybe thousands. Particularly if you're just setting up for the first time, you might be coming from other accounting software. So you might have thousands there. So no restriction on that one. But what you might find is when I've got a little box pop up, hopefully you might see it a little bit later on. What it will do #1 and then #2 when it reads the information. So initially what it does is it reads the information in your import file. It validates the information to make sure it's in the right format. So for instance, an account reference in Sage for a customer, the maximum number of characters is 8. And also you can't have spaces in there either. So it'll read that information, make sure it's right. And if it is, obviously it goes on to #2. So it reads all that information, validates it all, and then it'll go on to #2 where it's writing that information into Sage itself. So it's telling me these are the records that have been imported. And if I click close, popping back into customers, these are now my records. So if we just go into this first one, you'll see that, well, we did import the account reference. We imported the name of the company. We imported the address. There must have been nothing in address line 2 for this customer. So that's fine, it's left it blank. And then we imported the contact name and also a telephone number. Obviously, any other information, if we had imported that, it would be included. Now, anything that's essentially a required field that I haven't imported, if it's a brand new one, it will pick that up from, in this case, the customer defaults. So if I go into settings, customer defaults, and we can see there's a standard tax code of T1, and we've got a default nominal code of 4,000. So it will use that by default. So if I've just left it blank, it'll pick these up. So if I go back into that one and have a look at the defaults, you can see it's got 4,000 and T1. So it's picked that up. You may have specified that as part of the import file. So that's the first one. So imagine even if I was typing that in, probably about 28 minutes of me just talking for the webinar already. Would I have keyed them in that time? Hopefully. But if we'd had more than that, probably not. Right, let's have a look at our second file. So let me just get back to my desktop, and it's that one we're after. So let's have a look at this file. Right, now this one, it contains similar information. So you've got some account references, the name of the customer, and we've got the address information. We've got a contact name, and we've got some telephone numbers. Right, now there's no headings this time. So I'm going to show you what it looks like, how it's a little bit different when we import without headings. So remember, we need to close the file. We go back to Sage, and we go to File, Import. Again, step 1, take you back up. Then click Next. It's customer records I want to import. It's in Excel, so I'm going to browse for that file. So it's this one here, 1B this time. and this time it doesn't contain headings. Now, if I say it does contain headings and I click next, it would take me to the screen. And when I go to say, right, the account reference into my import file, it actually reads the information in there. It assumes that's the column heading information. It's not. It's just that's the data that I want to import. So we click back. I'll take the tick out of that one. And when I click next, this time I need to know which column the information is in. So the account reference, it now gives me just the letters. So I need to know, right, well, the account reference it's in column A. The account name, in my case, that's contained in column B. But equally, the account name might be in column Z. I can just specify which column contains the relevant information that relates to the information Sage requires. Now, I'm just going to quickly do this. So I've put them in alphabetical order just to help make sure I've done that right. Now, mine does contain contact names in the import file, and it does contain telephone numbers, but I'm not going to import them. I don't have to. Obviously, if I want to bring that information in, then yeah, I would fill that in. But there may be information in your import file that actually you just don't want. Maybe it's not relevant. So I'm just going to leave it as that. We'll click next. Gives me that summary. I'll click import. Again, it's very quick because I'm just importing a handful at a time here. And that's it. I click close, and we're now customers. We've got the extra ones in there. You can see we've got the likes of this one. That was the first record on the secondary import. But you'll see we chose not to import the contact names or the telephone numbers. So it's just left those blank. Third file. Now this is a one that uses the Sage import template. So if I just open that one so you can see it. So here's one we've prepared earlier. We've got something in the account reference. We've got loads of other information as well. Just close it. And we'll go back into Sage. And we go to File, Import. Again, step one, you would take your backup. It's customer records. It's an Excel file. I just need to browse for that. So it's 1C this time. It does contain headings. It's the import template. Now this time when I click next, it takes me to the field mappings on step 4, but you'll see that everything's mapped automatically for me. The field headings on the template, it recognizes them. So it's got the same headings as what Sage requires. So I don't need to change anything. You might even find on when you're importing your file that maybe some of them are the same. So if you put like the postcode as the column heading, it'll recognize that and automatically map it for you. So you see it maps all of the relevant fields for me. I can change them if I want to, but everything's mapped because I've used the template. So we click next, we click import, runs through. Again, that's it done. So back to customers. You can see the next set that we've got here. So again, nice and easy. So we're now already up to 29 records. Now, bear in mind, in one single import, you might have thousands. Imagine how long that would take you to sit there and key that information in. If you're like me, it would probably take you forever. Right, let's pick up on the next one. Now here's a file here. So it's a spreadsheet. The information I want to import, it's on sheet 1. So we've got some other sheets in there. I think by default, if you're creating your own, you'll have, I think it's 3 worksheets by default in an Excel workbook. The templates don't include extra sheets, it's just the one only. So what does it look like if you've got multiple sheets? So differs slightly. What it means is when you go to File and then Import, Again, you would take that back up, import records, browse for the relevant file. And the bit that's different this time is I still include headings, but this time it would ask me, right, which of the sheets in your workbook contains that information? So in this case, I would choose sheet 1, and then I would just continue to follow that through. Just cancel out in this case. So don't worry if you do have multiple worksheets. Now, next we'll quickly import this one. Again, it's got my own headings in here. So if I just change that to postcode, so it'll hopefully Sage will recognize it then. And we'll just obviously close out, and we'll go back into Sage, go File, Import, Customer Records, choose the file. So it's this one that I'm after. It does contain headings. If I click Next, now you'll see postcode, because it's got the right spelling and it's what Sage requires, it's automatically mapped it for me. So I'll just quickly do the rest of the mapping. Just type a few of them in as well, just to speed things up a little. And we'll say that's it. Now, if you're going to be importing the same type of information, it's coming from the same source, so it's coming in the same sort of format file, what you can do is you can save the mapping. Some mappings can be quite complex. It's quite a bit to map sometimes, but I'll just save it. I'm just going to save it as that. And what we'll do is we'll clear the map just for a second. So what it means is when we work through in the future, if that information is coming from the same sort of source, it's the same sort of format file, when we get to this point where it's asking us for the mapping, rather than me go through and say, right, the account reference that Sage requires is in the account reference folder, then the account name, that's the name folder. Instead, what I can do is load the mapping. Select the mapping that I've previously saved, click open, and it does that mapping for me. It knows what the headings are and what it should be mapped against. We can then just click import. That should be it done. That's the extra 5 files. Click close. In the customers, and if I scroll down to the bottom, we can see we've got these additional Z accounts that I have chosen to import. Any questions so far? Now, next, what I'm going to do, we'll just keep your questions coming if you have any. So what I've got on this file is I want to update my credit limits. So I don't think, did I import? Let's just go back to Sage for a moment. So I've got some with credit limits, the majority don't. So what I want to do is, let's say I get to the end of a period, or maybe I forgot to import that, and I want to put them in there now. So rather than me go into a record, so like A1 design, and say, right, credit control, right, the credit limit on this account is going to be £2,000, and save it. I'll then go into the next one, enter it, save it. So rather than do that, what I can do is, if you go back to my import files, I've got a list of my customers here. So I've got the account references, I've got the names, I've got contacts, and I've got the credit limits. So, right, what's the time? I'm going to say it's 2:39, so I'll do 14:39 as the credit limit for the very first customer. The rest I'll just leave as they are. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import this. Now, I don't need all this information. I don't need to know whether it's inactive or the contact names. I just need the account reference. It's an existing account. And also the credit limits. So let's just close out of that one. We'll go back to Sage. You can see that's still at £2,000 there at the moment. And I want to import those credit limits against these customers. So we go File, Import. It's customer records again. Browse for the file. So it's that one. It does contain headings. And this time, what I do want to import is, I need to specify the account reference. Name, I don't need to import that because nothing's changed. I'll just leave that one blank. And I just scroll down and find the credit limit. So the credit limit that Sage requires, that information is in my credit limit column. Now, that's all I have to do. I don't need to map anything else. If I click Next, I don't need to save any changes to the mapping layout. So I'll just click Import. Tells me it's done it. And if we go back to Customers, you can see that's it imported. So it might be easier in some instances when you're making changes like that to think, well, yeah, I'm going to update all the credit limits and the likes of an Excel spreadsheet. I might even, if you needed to go down this route, let's say I've got my customers there and I think, right, I'm going to send that to Excel. So that's my Excel file. And it includes the credit limits. Let's change it now. What's the time now? 14:41. I'll change it. And I'm going to save that. I'll pop it on my desktop. There we go. I'll just call it New Credit Limits. Save it. And what I'll then do is we'll just run through the import again. So File, Import. Again, you would take your backup. Can't stress that one enough. Customer records. Browse for the file. This time it's just on the desktop itself. I called it new. Did I call it new credit limits? At least I think I did. Oh, where did I save it? Obviously saved it somewhere else. I was sure I just put it in there. Let's see if I've put it in there. I haven't. Oh no. Best laid plans. Let's quickly do that one again, just so you can see what that looks like. So we'll go back to customers. We'll send a file. Again, it's 14:43. I'll make sure I save it in the right place this time. So more options. Stick it in the desktop. I'll just call it new credit limits. Save it. And then close. Go back to Sage. File. Import. Run through the wizard. Browse for my file. So it should be on the desktop this time. There it is. New credit limits. And then just basically follow that through. Now again, the only thing I need to import, we'll do the account reference and also the credit limit. So scroll down, find the credit limit, there it is. Click Next. Click Import. And if I go back to Customers, there you go. So as you can see, it uses it's a great way to refresh existing records. So the way that import works with records is if the account reference doesn't exist, it'll create a brand new record for you. If it does exist, it'll update that existing record. So if you are adding loads of new records, do be careful. Make sure it's a brand new record or brand new account reference that you are choosing to import. So hopefully that's given you a little bit of food for thought. I just want to quickly pick up on when things don't quite go to plan. So as I mentioned, this is quite common when people first attempt to import. You select your file, you run through the import wizard, and then it gives you an error. So what does it look like when that happens? Well, if we go back to Sage, I'll just show you some quick examples just before we wrap up. So remember, the first thing I said was your import file, it needs to be closed. So if we just open this one, the very first one that we started with, I'll give it a slightly different reference this time. Actually, we'll put some 9s on there. So essentially, this is a new account reference, and I'm just going to leave this open, this file. If we go back to Sage and we try to import that, oh, just bear with me, choosing the wrong option now. So file, import, choose the file that we want to try to import. So it's in my import records. It's the very first one. And it tells me this file is in use. So that's the common one, people still having that file open. So there's a number of common issues. The file's still open. You might get illegal sales or purchase ledger reference. Now, what does that mean? Let's close out of here for a moment. If I choose my import files, and I'll go back to this first one, and this time I'll put too many characters. So remember what I said, the account reference for a customer or supplier for that matter, it's 8 characters. So if I just call it, actually we'll call it MC, and I'll put more characters in than I'm actually allowed to use. So remember when I was saying earlier, when it goes through checking the data, it validates it, makes sure it's in the right format. So this one, it's got too many characters. If I save the changes, close out, and then try and run through the import one more time. I've got an extra Excel file open for some reason. So go through the import one more time. File, import. So it's customer records. And I want to go into that import records. That one's the one I've just amended. Contains headings. So we've got the mapping still in place from earlier. So next, import. And this time it doesn't import it. It tells me illegal sales ledger account reference, 1 error detected. Now it does say error in record 1. Now what that means is if I click edit import, it opens the import file for me that I've tried to import. And record 1, because I've got headings, don't let this one catch you out, record 1 is actually on row number 2. So I've got too many characters there, so I need to make sure it's in the right format. So I'll just change it, close out. I'll quickly work through the import one more time. Select that file. The mapping is done for me automatically from earlier. I'll click import, and this time it runs through. And as you can see, it's got that MC 123456. So again, maximum of 8 characters. It's imported it this time. So pop into customers. You can see it on the list. So it recognizes this one as being a new account, so it creates this new record for me with that account reference. The others, it would have updated them if there were any changes included in that import file. So just to summarize what we've looked at, we've gone through the main sort of import routine for records. So as I mentioned earlier, there's loads of different areas that you can import into record-wise. If I just go back a few slides, let's find it. There it is, records-wise, you've got customers, suppliers, nominal accounts, products, projects, and fixed assets. So If you've got a new product line, new range of products that you're going to be selling, can your supplier send you that information? Is it available on like say a price list that you can have in Excel format? If you work in, say, fashion, for instance, you're selling clothing, you probably have loads of different records which are very, very similar. So let's just say, always t-shirts as the example. You might sell a range of t-shirts. So you've got different colors, but also different sizes. So rather than me sitting there key them in one at a time, it means that I could open the product template, for instance, pop that information in once, copy it down, and then go and make the changes. So I might have a product code which has got sort of prod S for product small, prod M for product medium. Then I might even have a color code on the end of that as well. So many, many years ago, when I used to work for a manufacturing company that made outdoor wear, we had codes that obviously each garment, each style was assigned a code, but then you had the size and the color included in that product code, just so you could identify it. But largely speaking, the rest of the information will be the same. So sales price, cost price, the description, pretty much the same, other than maybe the size and the color being slightly different. So generating that type of information on a spreadsheet, sometimes it can be a lot easier than keying it in manually. So I hope that makes sense, giving you some food for thought. Now, you might not think of anything just at this point, but going forward, once you're aware of import, and as I say, we'll be looking at importing transactions on Friday afternoon if you're free, come along. There is a recording already available for that one as well. But once you're aware of it being available, you might start spotting opportunities. So rather than sitting keying something in, does it come from other software? If your colleagues give you a list of expenses to key in, or things like direct debits and standing orders, if it's the same type of thing each and every month, a list of adjustments from your accountant, could they pop that onto an Excel spreadsheet so you can import it rather than sitting keying that in? So once you're aware of it, as I say, those opportunities, something might just trigger something in the back of your mind. You think, oh yeah, maybe I could use import, save myself a bit of time here. So hopefully, think about that for the next, might not be the next week, might be the next month, might be the next 6 months, might be at year end when something just triggers and thinks, could I use import for that? Hopefully save you a little bit of time. Right, okay, questions. If you've got any relating to what we talked about today, quickly pop them in there. Loads of information in our help center. I did include a few links if you've downloaded the handouts. Nice and easy to find anyway if you pop along to sage.co.uk/help. Choose your product, so Sage 50 accounts. And hopefully you'll find loads of information to help you with import, as well as everything else to do with your software. Roger, you mentioned there about downloading receipts and things like that. We're not covering that in today's session. So if you're looking for, what's it called, document capture, I think it's now called, you'll find loads of information on that in our help center. So that should essentially allow you to scan it and essentially import the information for you as well. So to read that and write the transaction into your accounts for you. But have a look for document capture. It should find that for you in our help center. Another very popular webinar at the minute is Copilot for Sage 50 accounts. If you've not come across Copilot yet, or maybe you've heard a little bit about it, but maybe you want to find out a little bit more, we are running weekly webinars on Copilot at the moment. So the idea of Copilot, it provides insights for you. So you'll access the Copilot insight in certain areas, or for instance, within customers, it would help you sort of manage your debt. So helping you to understand, is there anything overdue? Is there anything about to be overdue? That type of thing. So do come along if you want to find out more about that, see how it works and what it can do to help. Link will be included on your follow-up email. And finally, apologies for the overrun. But finally, let me thank you for coming along. Hope you have found it useful, and I do hope you will spot those opportunities going forward to save yourself some time. Be a little survey pop-up as you leave today's session. If you can take a minute to complete that, it'd be greatly appreciated. Let me know, did it hit the mark? Was it too complex? Maybe some of you may be familiar with it. You might think, oh, it's a little bit slow for me, but let me know. If you think of anything else we could do to improve webinars or topics you'd like to see covered, pop them on there as well. Your follow-up email will be with you in around about an hour's time. That will include the links so you can watch a recording of this session if you need a bit of a recap or you want to share it with your colleagues. And it will also include links to get yourself registered for upcoming webinars, including Copilot, and also so you can watch our recordings as well. Otherwise, we'll end the webinar just at that point. Many thanks for coming along. Take care and enjoy the sunshine if it's still sunny where you are, and hopefully we'll see you on some other webinars soon. Many thanks.